Welcome to Discovering. Tonight we're on an overnight adventure to the Oren Krumm shelter on the North Country Trail.
After it burned down in '07, we thought we might put it in a different spot, but this turned out to be the best spot on the river.
Plus, an update on a snowmobile and ATV trail that's been closed for 5 years, and my turkey season recap. So sit back and relax. It's Monday night, and it's time for Discovering.
The secret streams that flow beneath the cliffs of colored stone. Forest thick and healthy with birch and pine and oak. Surrounded by the greatest lakes this world has ever known. The black bear's awesome presence as he roams the hills and fields. Call of the timber wolf, the loon's lonesome trill. The eagle soaring high above, the trout lies deep and still. These are what I treasure, the only way I measure feelings that I have for this fine land. There is so much to discover when you're a long-time lover of northern Michigan.
Before we go hiking, here's an update on a main snowmobile and ATV trail in the Keweenaw that's been closed for 5 years. I'm sure we will never forget that on Father's Day 2018, a 1,000-year flood ravaged Houghton County, destroying homes, roads, and businesses.
7 inches of rain in 7 hours. Yeah, it's just unbelievable. All these were flooded.
Another impact was the destruction of the snowmobile and ATV trail system from Ripley to Calumet. These trails ran along some of the historic copper mining railroad grades, and the failure of the old culverts under these to handle the amount of water coming down led to severe flooding and mudslides in the towns below them.
Looks like a real small culvert, probably 1.5 to 2 foot. And it lasted, since the mining days.
The DNR did do some remediation work right away to minimize further destruction.
This is part of what they did. They rip-wrapped it and tried to stabilize it as much as they could. So it looks like it's pretty well stabilized now, so until the next big flood.
But the main trail connecting these towns has been closed since the flood.
The loss of the trail system has been since that day, and it's affected everybody, tremendously. I don't know if any businesses went under, but I'm sure they've had a tough time, because of this trail system being in existence for well over 100 years, People walking it, using it, hiking, biking, ATV, snowmobile, whatever, snowshoeing. So we hope that by fall this will be put back together and we'll be in good shape again. And next year, summertime, we hope at this time to have it open for ATV traffic again. So
it's taken 5 years for the funds to be granted to restore this trail system. The work being done now will cost $8.5 million.
We got the money for it through the governor and FEMA and the DNR. We all worked on it together. So anyway, this is Daryl St. John, our president, and this is Kitty Bellick, our vice president.
There are 341 sites that need repair in this 7-mile stretch. Since some of the washouts are too big to repair, the new trail will transition back and forth to the different railroad grades, and larger culverts installed to replace the old small ones to prevent the same thing from happening again.
I'm Brian with B&B Contracting, and we got one of the 7 bids that they had out for fixing the trails. Ours were the largest project of the 7 bid packets, had the deepest culverts, almost up to 60 feet deep. That's what we're fixing all the trails up here. This one was a washout, and it was about 42 feet deep, and we put a new pipe down there, and now we're topsoiling the slopes and gonna move to the next. We got 28 culverts to do on our job.
Another big reason to get these trails open soon is people are blazing their own trails through the woods.
So they start going on these side trails like this more and more. everything gets chewed up, you know. So that's basically why we want a main trail back to service Lake Linden, Hubble, Dollar Bay, Tamarack, Ripley, and Hancock and Houghton.
We'll check back on the progress of the trail later in the year. I'm not sure how much better life gets than sitting by a river, listening to the water flow, the birds sing, and the crackle of a campfire. Just hanging out in nature, admiring the little things, listening, exploring. Here in the UP, you can go on a long-distance hike or just a short trek to get to a place like this. This place is just a couple short miles down the North Country Trail. It's called the Oren Krumm Shelter and is located on the Sturgeon River just north of M28 near Covington. My expedition partner today is my dad. He's retired, so I can haul him around on adventures with me. We had been waiting for some decent weather before the bugs got too bad to get out here, and with an overnight low of only 40-ish, we figured this was our best shot. Well, we didn't beat the bug hatch, but nothing a little Youper perfume can't take care of.
Good clone.
Now, how much stuff does two people need for one night? To lighten our load, we decided to leave the fishing poles behind because of the high water from recent rain. We parked in the lot along the road and followed the signs to Tibbetts Falls, completely missing the North Country Trail sign located right next to the main road, and followed a 2-track instead. From previous experience, I knew the shelter was down past the falls. Then we saw that we could have driven my truck in closer. Oh well, we already cut a half mile off our hike taking this route.
Alright, looks like
Somebody camped here.
Aha. So. Oh, see, that looks wet. We took the better way.
Yeah.
Eventually, we found the blue blazes of the North Country Trail that wound down to the river and the rushing of Tibbetts Falls. With the beautiful sights of the river, we decided to put her in no hurry, as my dad likes to say. We got down trail where the river widened and slowed.
Go get the fishing poles.
Get the fishing pole. Oh, that feels good.
I learned about the Oren Krumm shelter a few years ago when I did a snowshoe hike to it with the North Country Trail hiking group, and have wanted to stay out here and do a story on it since. I met up with Marge Krumm at the shelter another day to learn more about her son Oren and why they built it.
So when Doug suggested this area for a shelter, he said that we would have to move the fire pit back a few times as the river gets older. It makes a bigger bend here, and we have had to move the fire pit back several times. It looks like these screens are working pretty well to keep the mosquitoes out.
Yeah.
Our son Oren died in October of '98. He was only 18. He got that meningococcal septicemia, and it killed him in a day. Friends and people gave us money, and so Ray, my husband, wanted to make sure that we used that money on things that were important to Oren, and the North Country Trail was one of them. And it was mostly Oren's friends and our relatives and Boy Scouts and a small Girl Scout troop too that brought down materials and worked on the shelter. That was in 1999. After it burned down in '07, we thought we might put it in a different spot, but this turned out to be the best spot on the river, and so we built it in the same spot. Doug Welker, our first president of our Peter Wolf chapter, had this dream about having 10 shelters along our Peter Wolf chapter 125 miles. So he had this place already picked out. And he brought Ray, my husband, and I back here, and we camped overnight, and he showed us where he wanted to have the shelter built. And so this was his plan.
In 2007, the shelter burned to the ground during the Barriga Bump Fire on the Barriga Plains that burned over 1,300 acres. The fire started during a controlled burn the U.S. Forest Service was conducting when high winds and dry air bumped the fire past the Forest Service's control lines. You can still see the scars and charred tree trunks along the trail and by the shelter.
From what I was told, it was a scheduled event, and so they went ahead and did it, even though it really wasn't good conditions for burning. And this shelter was the only structure that I know of that actually burnt. The privy didn't burn, but the fire came down, went to the river. There's places where you can see it jumped the river and went to the other side. It was devastating for us that the shelter went down, but it was important that we built it again. Again, we had help from some of the same people, some different people. Steve Wara from Lance helped a lot. He's the one that built the bunks and the door and the shelves here. And the DNR let us use a four-wheeler that we brought some of the materials down with. And they also let us use a generator so we could use some power tools on the second one. One of the things that we felt bad about was losing the journals from the first shelter. That's why we bought this fireproof box for the journals this time, so that I think it's nice for people to be able to come back and look in the journal, see when they were here last time, and kids draw pictures in there. It's just kind of nice. When I come back by myself, that's when I spend the most time reading the journal. A lot of local people use this trail and this shelter.
This shelter and location are a beautiful tribute and a peaceful spot to come out and remember your loved ones.
Not only for us, but for everybody, for people to contemplate their time with Oren or their time with their own kids. There's a Native American saying, and I'm not sure where it came from, but they talk about life as being like a river. And there's parts of the river that are smooth and gentle and quiet. And then there's parts of the river that they go over the waterfalls and they're making all this noise and activity and destruction sometimes. That's the way life is.
After a break at the shelter, we decided to go back for those fishing poles. It was still early enough in the day, and part of our mission was Brookies for dinner. The hike back to the truck was easier and faster without our packs. Got the fishing poles. And we fished our way back to the shelter. I only caught a couple of little chubs. Dad had a brookie on the line, but waited for me to run over with the camera, and it sadly got off.
Probably about 9 inch.
Back at the shelter, we made some firewood. while I pretended to help for the camera. And some of the firewood was already cut for us. The beavers have been busy landscaping around the shelter. We did see the clear-cutting culprit a few times swimming in the river. He, or she, wasn't too happy about us being there either and slapped its tail in the water a few times to let us know. The bugs were out, mostly black flies, but none of those bit too hard. We drank a nice warm beer or two and roasted hot dogs. Cooking fish over the open fire would have made for better TV, but you can't really beat a Ballworth's hot dog roasted over a campfire. And we relaxed. Our entertainment for the evening was watching foam icebergs float down the river. Who needs a TV or social media to mindlessly scroll when you have all this to watch? And a mesmerizing fire to tend to. As the sky grew darker, a whippoorwill started singing just across the river. It's been many years since I've heard one, and never so close. The male whippoorwill chants its name on summer nights to attract a mate. They forage at night and sleep during the day. The night sky was clear, and our campsite gave us a perfect view of the starry sky. We even caught a glimpse of the northern lights after midnight. We woke up to a peaceful morning, drank some coffee, signed the logbook, and headed out.
Rough. Yeah, had a good time again.
Turkey season is over, and I hope many of you hunters were successful. I was not. I only had time to sit a few mornings, and this big Tom would not cooperate with me. All season long, he wandered up and down my hill, in the woods, in the field, gobbling away, tormenting me, and we could never be in the same place at the same time. Also, this season, I tagged along with Everett Miles and his dad Travis again, determined to get Ev his first turkey. On opening day, we had a couple of toms gobbling back at us, but we couldn't get them close enough to see. How'd opening morning of turkey hunting go?
Okay, I guess.
What happened?
Dad scared away all the turkeys.
From opening day to almost the last day, Everett didn't give up, and they hunted most weekends. I give the kid a lot of credit. On the last day we could get together, we tried to get that big Tom I'd been watching all month. So the three of us stuffed ourselves into my deer blind that was not built for two adults to stand in. Tom Turkey gobbled back at us from just out of sight directly in front of the blind, and sounded like he was moving just a little ways in and out and left and right for what seemed like forever. We were just about to give up when he finally popped out to our right with a couple of hens. The only problem was the Tom wouldn't come any closer than 40-ish yards and out from behind that huge clump of trees. He strutted and gobbled back at every call, and this went on for almost 40 minutes until the turkeys wandered out of sight. We made a last-ditch decision to try and sneak out and cut them off. We crept up into the woods and he gobbled probably 70 to 80 yards out. We kept sneaking closer and making a call. In our last attempt to get closer, he busted us and took off. The game was over. We had tried our best in the 11th hour, and now we must wait until next season to try again. We had fun this morning though. We finally got one in sight, and we counted that as a win. That's all for tonight, and I hope to see you right back here next week for Upper Michigan's very own Discovering.